Get your dirty black hands off my car, boy! The voice exploded through the blizzard. An 82-year-old white man kneeling beside his Mercedes, a flat tire sagging beneath the axle, face twisted with disgust. You people see something nice, you just have to touch it, don't you? Waiting for me to die so you can strip it for parts? 10-year-old Franklin Taylor stood frozen. Snow caked his dead father's oversized coat. No gloves, fingers cracking red. I'm sorry, sir. I saw your flat tire and thought I could help. Help me? The old man spat. I built a billion-dollar empire. You think I need help from some poor black kid from the ghetto? Frankie's voice stayed quiet. My daddy said help people when you can, even ones who don't want it. The blizzard roared, and the old white billionaire stared at the poor black boy who refused to walk away. 24 hours earlier. The medicine bottles lined up on the kitchen counter like little soldiers, orange caps, white labels, white names Frankie couldn't pronounce but had memorized anyway. Lisinopril, Metoprolol, Furosemide, Foslyra. His mama's life, measured in milligrams. Mama, it's time for your pills. Grace Taylor sat in the worn recliner, a blanket wrapped around her thin shoulders. 34 years old, but the kidney failure had aged her 2 decades. Her skin had grayed like old newspaper. Her hair had thinned until her scalp showed through. Her eyes, once bright as summer lightning, now carried shadows that never lifted. Baby, you shouldn't have to do all this. Frankie filled a glass of water from the tap, waited for it to run clear. Sometimes it took 30 seconds, sometimes a minute. Sometimes it never ran clear at all, and he had to boil it first. Daddy said take care of you, so I'm taking care of you. He handed her the pills, 3 white, 1 blue, 1 yellow. She swallowed them slowly, wincing at each one like they were made of glass. On the wall behind her hung photographs in cheap frames. Raymond Taylor in his army uniform, young and proud, medals on his chest. Raymond holding baby Frankie in the hospital, tears streaming down his face. Raymond and Grace on their wedding day, so young, so hopeful, so unaware of what waited ahead. 2 years ago, a drunk driver ran a red light on Jefferson Avenue. Raymond Taylor died on impact. The other driver, a white man with a good lawyer, walked away with a $500 fine and a suspended license. No jail time, no justice. Just a funeral and a mountain of debt. Now it was just Frankie and Mama, and bills that arrived like clockwork while the money didn't. The TV flickered in the corner, volume low, but the weatherman's voice cut through the static. Historic blizzard approaching the Detroit metro area tonight. Temperatures expected to drop to -10 degrees. Wind chill as low as -30. Residents are strongly advised to stay indoors. This is not a drill, folks. If you don't have to go out, don't... Grace coughed. Deep, wet, rattling. The kind of cough that made Frankie's stomach clench into a fist. Mama, you okay? I'm fine, baby. She wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine in months, maybe years. Frankie glanced at the medicine counter, counted the bottles. His heart sank like a stone in deep water. Mama, we're out of your nausea pills. Grace waved her hand weakly, like she was shooing away a fly. I can skip a day. It's okay. The doctor said you can't skip. It messes with the dialysis, makes everything worse. Frankie, I'll go to the pharmacy. It's not far. Grace grabbed his wrist. Her grip was weak. She'd lost so much strength, but her eyes were fierce as fire. There's a blizzard coming. You're not going out there. Pharmacy closes in 2 hours. If I don't go now, you won't have it until Monday. That's 3 days, Mama. 3 days without your medicine. They stared at each other, mother and son. Stubbornness, meeting, stubbornness. A battle neither wanted to win. Grace's eyes filled with tears. When did you grow up so fast? Frankie kissed her forehead. Her skin was dry and warm. Too warm. "Daddy taught me." He pulled on Raymond's old coat. Brown leather, cracked at the elbows, worn soft at the collar, 3 sizes too big. But it smelled like him. Like motor oil and Old Spice aftershave and something else Frankie couldn't name but knew meant safety. "I'll be back before the storm hits." He wasn't. The walk to the pharmacy was 40 minutes on a good day. Today was the opposite of good. Wind cut through Frankie's coat like 1,000 tiny knives. Snow swirled so thick he could barely see 10 feet ahead. His sneakers, worn thin at the soles, bought secondhand from Goodwill, soaked through in the first 5 minutes. But he kept walking. Past the boarded-up hardware store where Mr. Jenkins used to let him sweep for quarters. Past the empty lot where Mr. Kim's grocery used to be before it burned down last summer. Past the corner where Daddy used to buy him strawberry ice cream on Sunday afternoons. The pharmacy was warm, fluorescent lights buzzing. Mrs. Patterson, the pharmacist, looked up with deep concern. "Franklin Taylor, what on earth are you doing out in this mess?" "My mama needs her medicine, ma'am." Mrs. Patterson shook her head but said nothing more. She filled the prescription, handed him the small white bag. "You get home quick, you hear? This storm's gonna be real bad. They're saying it might be the worst in 20 years. "Yes, ma'am." He stepped back into the blizzard. The walk home was worse. Much worse. Wind had picked up to a howl. Temperature had dropped another 10 degrees. Frankie couldn't feel his fingers anymore, couldn't feel his toes. His lungs burned with each frozen breath, but he kept walking. Then he saw the hazard lights, blinking orange through the white curtain of snow. A car on the side of the road. Expensive looking. Black. Sleek. The kind of car that cost more than every house on Maple Street combined. And beside it, a figure, kneeling in the snow, struggling with something. Frankie should have kept walking. Mama was waiting. The storm was getting worse every minute. This wasn't his problem. But he heard his daddy's voice, clear as the day he died. "Help people when you can, son. God keeps the score." Frankie walked toward the car. An old white man knelt in the snow, hands shaking violently, trying to grip a lug wrench. A flat tire sagged uselessly beneath the rear axle. The car was a Mercedes. Frankie had seen them in magazines at the barber shop, and it probably cost more than his mama would earn in a lifetime. "Sir, you need help?" The old man looked up, and the hatred in his eyes hit Frankie like a physical blow. "Get your dirty black hands off my car, boy!" The words should have sent Frankie running. Instead, they rooted him to the spot. "I'm sorry, sir. I just saw your flat tire and thought maybe I could—" "You people always have an excuse, don't you?" The old man's voice dripped contempt, thick as poison. "What's your angle, huh? $50 to change a tire? 100? You think I don't know how this works in neighborhoods like this?" Frankie looked at the man's hands, shaking so hard the wrench kept slipping. Fingers blue-white beneath thin leather gloves that weren't made for weather like this. Arthritis, probably, or frostbite setting in. Either way, he'd die out here if he stayed much longer. "Sir, your hands aren't working. You'll freeze if you stay out here." "I'll call someone. I don't need help from the likes of you." "Who you gonna call?" "Roads are closed. I heard it on the news. No tow trucks running tonight." The old man fumbled for his phone, dropped it in the snow, cursed loudly, tried to pick it up but his frozen fingers wouldn't cooperate. Frankie bent down, picked up the phone, held it out. "I'm not trying to rob you, sir. My daddy taught me how to change tires when I was 8 years old. I can have this done in 30 minutes, maybe less." The old man stared at him, really looked this time, at the oversized coat with the cracked leather, at the sneakers soaked through with snow, at the small brown face, serious and calm beyond its 10 years. "Why? Why would you help me after what I said to you?" Frankie shrugged. Snow was piling on his shoulders. My daddy always said help people when you can. God keeps the score. Something flickered in the old man's eyes. Something Frankie couldn't name. Shame, maybe. Or surprise. Fine, but if anything's missing from this car when you're done, nothing will be missing, sir. Frankie knelt in the snow. No gloves, no knee pads, just his bare hands and the teachings of a dead man who'd loved him more than life. The lug nuts were frozen solid. He had to throw his whole body weight into the wrench to get the first one moving. Pain shot through his fingers. He ignored it. Second lug nut. Third. His knuckles cracked and bled. He kept going. The old man watched in silence. After a while, he spoke again. Quieter now. Almost human. That coat you're wearing. It's too big for you. It was my daddy's. Was? He passed. 2 years ago. Car accident. Silence. Just the wind howling and the snow piling up, and a 10-year-old boy bleeding for a stranger who'd called him the worst things he'd ever heard. I'm sorry. Frankie didn't respond. Fourth lug nut. Fifth. His hands were numb now, which was almost a mercy. The cold had killed the pain. What's your name, son? Franklin, sir. Franklin Taylor. People call me Frankie. I'm Richard. Frankie nodded, pulled the flat tire free, rolled it aside, retrieved the spare from the trunk, which Richard had managed to open before his hands gave out. You do this often? Help strangers in blizzards? First time, sir. Usually people in my neighborhood don't need help with tires, they need help with other things. Like what? Frankie positioned the spare, started tightening the lug nuts. Like rent, medicine, keeping the lights on, finding work that pays enough to matter. Richard was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Softer. Your mother? She's alone? Yes, sir. She's sick. Real sick. Kidney failure. That's why I was out tonight, getting her medicine from the pharmacy. In this storm? Couldn't it wait? No, sir. She needs her pills every single day. Pharmacy was closing soon. Frankie tightened the last lug nut, tested the tire with both hands. Solid. All done, sir. He stood up. His whole body ached. Hands cracked and bleeding, coat soaked through. But the job was finished. Richard reached for his wallet, pulled out a thick stack of $100 bills. Let me pay you, please. Let me pay you. 500, 1,000, whatever you want. Frankie looked at the money. More cash than he'd ever seen in his entire life. Enough to pay 3 months of rent. Buy medicine for a year. He shook his head. I didn't do it for money, sir. Then why? Because you needed help, and I could help. That's reason enough. Richard Thornton stared at the boy, eyes wet. From cold or something else, he couldn't tell anymore. At least tell me where you live, in case I want to... He trailed off. In case he wanted to what? Thank him properly? Make amends? He didn't even know. Maple Street, sir. The small house with the blue door. Only blue door on the whole block. Can't miss it. Frankie turned to walk away, then stopped. Looked back. Sir, you should get in your car now. Warm up before you catch your death. The highway's about 2 miles east. Drive slow, real slow. He disappeared into the blizzard before Richard could say another word. Richard Thornton sat in his Mercedes for a long time. Heat blasting. Hands slowly regaining feeling. Mind replaying everything that had just happened. He looked at the spot in the snow where the boy had knelt. Dark spots on the white. Blood. A child's blood. Shed for a stranger who had called him every hateful thing in the book. His phone buzzed. William's name on the screen. "Dad? Where are you? We've been worried sick. The storm—" "I'm fine." Richard's voice came out strange, thick with something he hadn't felt in decades. "I'm fine. I met someone tonight." "Who?" Richard watched the snow slowly bury the bloodstains, erasing the evidence of Grace. "Someone who reminded me of a debt I've owed for 60 years. The next morning, Frankie woke to sunlight cutting through plastic sheets. His hands throbbed like they'd been hit with hammers. He looked down, knuckles cracked and raw, dried blood in the creases. But he'd made it home. Mama had her medicine. That was what mattered. "Frankie, baby, come quick!" Grace's voice, worried, maybe scared. He shuffled to the living room, joints stiff from the cold that had seeped into his bones. Grace sat in her recliner, face pale, pointing at the window with a trembling hand. "There's a fancy car outside. Been sitting there for 20 minutes, just sitting." Frankie looked. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom, chrome gleaming in the morning sun, engine purring like a contented lion. His heart stopped. "Stay inside, Mama." "Frankie, what's happening?" "Just stay inside. I'll handle it." He opened the front door just as a tall white man in a perfectly tailored gray suit walked up the cracked concrete pathway. Behind him, the Rolls-Royce sat like a spaceship that had landed in the wrong galaxy. Neighbors were already gathering, watching, whispering. The man stopped, looked at Frankie, at the oversized coat, at the bandaged hands wrapped in torn bed sheets because they couldn't afford proper gauze. "Franklin Taylor? Who's asking?" "My name is William Thornton. I believe you met my father last night." Frankie's mind raced. The old man, the flat tire, the hatred that had melted into something else by the end. "Is he okay?" William blinked. Something shifted in his face. "You're asking if he's okay? After how he treated you?" Frankie shrugged, his daddy's coat shifting on his small shoulders. "He was cold and scared, sir. People say things when they're cold and scared. Don't mean that's who they really are." William Thornton stared at him for a long moment. Then he did something strange, something that made the watching neighbors gasp. He removed his hat. "My father is Richard Thornton Sr., founder of Thornton Industries, net worth $2.3 billion. Last night he got lost driving home from my mother's grave. His car got a flat tire in the worst blizzard in 20 years. He nearly froze to death." Frankie said nothing, waited. "He told me a 10-year-old black boy appeared out of the storm like an angel, changed his tire with bare hands, refused $1,000, then vanished into the snow." "I didn't vanish, sir. I just went home." William's voice carried weight, the weight of old money and older guilt. "My father also told me what he said to you, how he treated you when you first approached." He paused, swallowed hard. "I'm here to apologize on his behalf, and to ask a question that's been haunting him all night." "What question?" "Why did you help him? After he said those terrible things? After he treated you like you were less than human?" Frankie looked at the Rolls-Royce, at the suit that probably cost more than a year of his mother's medical bills, at the leather shoes shining like mirrors, at the world that had suddenly appeared on his crumbling doorstep. "My daddy taught me something before he died. He said kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who you are. You don't help people because they earned it. You help them because helping is what you do." William was silent. The morning sun caught the frost on the dead grass. "May I come in, Franklin? There's something I need to discuss with your mother." Grace Taylor had never had a billionaire's son in her living room. She'd cleaned as best she could when she saw the car outside, hiding the eviction notice in a drawer, straightening the pillows on the couch, making sure the medicine bottles weren't too visible. Pride. Even now, even dying, She had her pride. William sat on the worn couch. Its springs groaned under him. He looked around, at the medicine bottles she'd missed, the photographs of Raymond, the water stains on the ceiling, the patched walls. He saw everything. She could tell. But he didn't look away, didn't wrinkle his nose. Just looked. "Mrs. Taylor, my father wants to help your family." Grace stiffened. Here it came. The catch, the angle. "We don't need charity, Mr. Thornton. It's not charity, it's a debt." "What debt could you possibly owe us?" William leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His expensive suit creased. 60 years ago, during the Korean War, a young black soldier saved my father's life. Private Samuel Coleman, from right here in Detroit. They were pinned down by enemy fire. My father took shrapnel to the leg. Couldn't walk. Couldn't even crawl. Private Coleman carried him 3 miles through enemy territory to the medic station. Grace listened. Frankie listened. A week later, there was another attack. Private Coleman took a bullet meant for my father. He died in my father's arms. The room was very quiet, just the hum of the ancient refrigerator. My father spent 60 years trying to find Samuel Coleman's family, to thank them, to repay the debt. He never could. The army records were incomplete. The family had moved. The trail went cold. William looked at Frankie. "Last night, your son appeared in a blizzard, helped a stranger who didn't deserve help, showed courage and kindness that my father says he's never seen before in his life. And all my father could think was, this is Samuel Coleman's spirit, come back to remind me what I owe." Grace looked at her son, at his bandaged hands, at the coat that belonged to a dead man who had taught him to be brave. "What exactly are you offering, Mr. Thornton?" "Everything." The word hung in the air like a promise. "All your medical bills, paid, past, present, and future. The kidney transplant you need. We'll find the best doctors in the country. The eviction, yes, we know about that. Our lawyers are already preparing an injunction. And a college fund for Franklin. Full ride. Any university he wants." Grace's hands trembled in her lap. "Why? You don't even know us." "Because my father is dying, Mrs. Taylor. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He has maybe a year left, probably less." Grace's face softened. She knew about dying, knew about watching the clock run out. "He told me the last good thing he wants to do, the last real thing, is help the boy who saved him. Not for publicity, not for tax benefits, just because it's right." Silence. Grace looked at Frankie. Frankie looked at Grace. Finally, she spoke. "I need time to think about this." "Of course." William pulled out a card. Thick paper. Embossed gold letters. "My personal number. Day or night." He stood to leave, then stopped at the door. "For what it's worth, Mrs. Taylor, I've never seen my father cry. Not at my mother's funeral. Not when he got his diagnosis. But last night, telling me about Frankie, he wept like a child. Whatever your son did out there in that blizzard, it changed something in him." He left. The Rolls-Royce pulled away silently, and Maple Street returned to its usual struggling quiet. That evening, mother and son sat at the kitchen table. William's card lay between them like a golden ticket. "What do you think, baby?" Frankie traced the embossed letters with his bandaged finger. "Thornton Industries, a world away from everything he knew. I think Daddy would say God puts people in our path for a reason." "And what do you think the reason is?" Frankie looked at his mother, at the shadows under her eyes that never went away, at the pills she had to swallow every 4 hours, at the eviction notice she thought she'd hidden but he'd found weeks ago. "I think the reason is you, Mama. You're supposed to get better. That's what this is about." Grace broke. The tears she'd been holding since Raymond's funeral, the tears she'd refused to cry because she had to be strong, finally fell. Baby, I'm so tired of fighting. Every day is a fight. Fighting the pain, fighting the bills, fighting to stay alive. I'm so tired. Frankie took her hands. His small fingers wrapped around her thin ones. Then let me fight for you, just for a little while. That's what Daddy would do. That's what Daddy would want me to do. She pulled him close, held him like he was 5 years old again, like Raymond was still alive and the world still made sense. Okay, she whispered into his hair. We'll call him. But I have conditions. What conditions? You stay in your school, your neighborhood, your life. You're not their project or their mascot. You're my son first. Always my son first. Yes, Mama. And whatever they give us, I work for it when I'm well. I'm not a charity case. I'm Grace Taylor, and I pay my own way. Yes, Mama. She reached for the phone, dialed with shaking fingers. Mr. Thornton, this is Grace Taylor. We'll accept your help. 1 month later. For the first time in years, the Taylor house felt alive. The plastic sheets were gone, replaced with real windows that actually sealed. Heat worked around the clock. Lights stayed on all night. Grace's medicine arrived weekly from a pharmacy that delivered right to the door. Frankie still went to Jefferson Elementary, still walked the same cracked sidewalks, still wore his daddy's coat. But things were different. The weight was lighter. Grace had started treatment at Henry Ford Hospital, the best kidney specialists in Michigan. Her skin had regained some color. She'd gained 6 pounds. Some mornings, she even made breakfast herself. Mama, Mr. Coleman's here. The old neighbor shuffled through the front door, carrying a sweet potato pie still warm from the oven. Heard you got yourself some fancy friends, Grace. Grace laughed. It was a sound Frankie hadn't heard in months. News travels fast on Maple Street. Only thing faster is the roaches. He set the pie down, looked around at the repairs, new windows, patched walls, working heater, shook his gray head in wonder. Never thought I'd see a Thornton do right by this neighborhood. People can change, Mr. Coleman. He didn't sound convinced, but he accepted a slice of pie anyway. Frankie visited Richard every Saturday. A driver picked him up at noon, drove him to the estate. They played chess in Richard's study, surrounded by books and old photographs. Richard taught him about business. Not to make money, but to understand how the world worked. Power isn't money, Franklin. Money's just a tool. Power is relationships. It's knowing people. It's trust. Remember that. Yes, sir. And stop calling me sir. Makes me feel ancient. You are ancient. Richard laughed, a real deep laugh. His nurse, watching from the doorway, whispered that she hadn't heard that sound in 5 years. An unlikely friendship. An 82-year-old white billionaire dying of cancer and a 10-year-old black boy from the ghetto. Nobody would believe it if they saw it. But it was real, and it was growing. Then Victoria came home. Richard's daughter. Flew in from New York on a Tuesday. Walked into the estate like she already owned it. Blonde hair, cold blue eyes, a smile that never reached them. Father, we need to talk about this charity case of yours. The warmth drained from Richard's face. Her name is Grace. His name is Franklin. I don't care about their names. I care about our money. Victoria sat across from her father, legs crossed, arms folded. Everything about her was sharp. Cheekbones, voice, intentions. You're giving away millions to complete strangers. Strangers who, let's be honest, come from a demographic that's cost this company plenty in lawsuits. They're not strangers. They're people. They're liabilities, Father. And you're too sick to see it. Richard's jaw tightened. But before he could respond, Victoria stood. "I've filed a petition. Medical evaluation. Tomorrow at 10. If you can't prove you're mentally competent, I assume control of all assets." "You wouldn't." "I already have." She smoothed her designer dress. "It's for your own good. And the family's." She walked out without looking back. The next morning, the news story broke like a bomb. Dying billionaire's bizarre obsession with ghetto child. Family demands mental evaluation. Grace saw it first, hands shaking as she scrolled through her phone. Richard Thornton Sr., 82, founder of Thornton Industries, has developed an unusual relationship with a 10-year-old boy from one of Detroit's poorest neighborhoods. Sources close to the family describe the arrangement as disturbing and questionable. The boy's mother, Grace Taylor, a 34-year-old unemployed single mother on dialysis, has reportedly received hundreds of thousands of dollars from the ailing billionaire. Family members are demanding a psychiatric evaluation, with one source stating, "He's lost his mind. This is elder abuse in reverse." Grace threw up in the bathroom sink. "Mama?" Frankie knocked on the door. "Mama, what's wrong?" She couldn't answer. The words, the implications, made her want to claw off her own skin. At school, it was worse. Kids had phones. Kids had parents who watched the news. By lunchtime, everyone knew. "Hey, Frankie! Heard you're a rich man's pet now!" "What did you have to do for that money, Frankie, huh?" "Your mama must be real—" Frankie's fist connected with Darnell Morrison's jaw before he could finish the sentence. Teachers pulled them apart. Principal's office, suspension, 3 days. Frankie sat in the hard plastic chair, blood on his knuckles again, and didn't cry. He wanted to. God, how he wanted to. But Daddy never cried. So neither would he. That evening, Grace received another envelope, hand-delivered by a man in a suit who wouldn't meet her eyes. Notice to vacate. 72 hours. This can't be right. Grace's hands trembled so badly she could barely hold the paper. The lawyers said we were protected. They said... She called William. Voicemail. Called again. Voicemail again. Called the Foundation's legal team. A receptionist answered in a clipped, rehearsed tone. I'm sorry, Mrs. Taylor. Due to a conflict of interest, we're no longer able to represent you in housing matters. What conflict? What are you talking about? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details. Have a good day. Click. Grace stared at the phone, at the eviction notice, at her son standing in the doorway with a black eye from a fight he shouldn't have had to fight. Mama? What's happening? She couldn't tell him. Couldn't add another rock to those small shoulders. Nothing, baby. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be fine. It wasn't fine. It wasn't anywhere close to fine. At midnight, Grace collapsed. One moment she was washing dishes, trying to keep busy, trying not to think. The next, she was on the floor, clutching her side, unable to breathe. Mama! Frankie called 911, held her hand, told her over and over that it would be okay, even though he didn't know if it would be. The ambulance came. Paramedics, stretcher, flashing lights and screaming sirens. At the hospital, a doctor in green scrubs delivered the news. Mrs. Taylor's kidney function has dropped to 8%. She needs a transplant immediately. We found a donor. A match came through yesterday, but there's a problem. What problem? The surgery costs $400,000. Insurance won't cover it. And as of this morning, the Thornton Foundation has frozen all payments pending a legal review. Victoria. This was all Victoria. Frankie sat in the waiting room. Alone. 2 in the morning. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. His mother dying somewhere down the hall. His home gone in 72 hours. The one person who'd promised to help, suddenly unreachable. He looked at his hands, still healing from the blizzard, still marked by his choice to help. Help people when you can, son. God keeps the score. But what happened when you helped and it all fell apart anyway? What happened when God wasn't paying attention? Frankie made a decision. He walked out of the hospital, found a bus stop, waited in the cold, not as brutal as the blizzard, but cold enough to remind him. 2 buses, 90 minutes. The Thornton estate rose out of the darkness like a castle. Security stopped him at the iron gate. Kid, you can't be here. It's 4 in the morning. I need to see Mr. Richard right now. Nobody sees Mr. Thornton at this hour. Come back tomorrow. Frankie stepped closer to the intercom, spoke clearly. Tell him Frankie Taylor is here. Tell him my mama is dying. Tell him his daughter is trying to kill us. The guard hesitated, made a phone call, listened. His eyes widened. Go on through, he's waiting for you. Richard sat in his study, wide awake, like he'd known this moment was coming. I heard about Grace. I've been trying to reach William all night, but Victoria has him trapped with lawyers. Mr. Richard, I don't understand what's happening. Why is everything falling apart? Sit down, Franklin. Frankie sat. For the first time since this all began, he looked exactly like what he was, a scared 10-year-old boy whose whole world was crumbling. Victoria is my daughter, but she is not a good person. She runs the family's real estate division, including... He paused, shame darkening his face. Including the company that's evicting your family. Frankie's stomach dropped. She's been fighting me since I announced I was helping you. The news story, the legal freeze, the eviction. It's all her. All designed to break me, to prove I'm incompetent. So it's over? There's nothing we can do? No. Richard's eyes, those same eyes that had burned with hatred in the blizzard, now burned with something entirely different. She thinks I'm just a confused old man waiting to die. She thinks tomorrow's evaluation will prove I've lost my mind. He leaned forward in his wheelchair. She's wrong. I've been preparing for this for months, waiting for her to make her move. What do you mean? Richard smiled, cold, sharp. The smile of a man who'd spent 60 years building empires and destroying enemies. She wants a war? I'll give her a war she'll never forget. He looked at Frankie. But I need your help. Richard opened a locked drawer in his desk, pulled out a thick folder stuffed with documents. For 6 months, I've been gathering evidence. Victoria's company, Thornton Properties, has systematically targeted minority neighborhoods for predatory evictions, forged lease modifications, fabricated code violations, bribes to city inspectors, kickbacks from developers. He spread the papers across his desk. Every family she's destroyed is documented here. Every bribe, every lie. Frankie looked at the documents. He didn't understand the legal language, the accounting terms, the corporate jargon, but he understood enough. She's been hurting people like us, for years. Yes, and I helped build the machine that allowed her to do it. Richard's voice was hollow with regret. Every family she destroyed, their blood is on my hands too. So why didn't you stop her before? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Because I didn't see them, not really. They were just numbers on a spreadsheet. Quarterly profit reports, cost savings and efficiency metrics. Richard looked at Frankie. Then I met you. And suddenly the numbers had faces, had stories, had children. He closed the folder. Tomorrow, Victoria thinks she's going to prove I'm mentally incompetent. Instead, I'm going to prove what she really is. But I need witnesses, families she's destroyed, people willing to stand up and tell the truth. I know people. You do? Maple Street, Mr. Coleman, the Hendersons, Mrs. Santos. They've all got stories about losing their homes. They've all got papers. They're just too scared to fight because nobody ever believed them before. Richard nodded slowly. Can you convince them to come here? Tomorrow morning before 10? I can try. Then try. Because if this doesn't work, Victoria wins everything. And your mother..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Frankie went back to Maple Street as the sun rose. He didn't go to the hospital. Not yet. He couldn't face Mama without something to offer besides despair. Mr. Coleman answered his door at 6 in the morning, wearing a robe, holding an ancient shotgun. "Boy, are you out of your mind? What time is it?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Coleman, but I need your help. My mama's dying, and you might be the only person who can save her." He explained everything. The eviction, Victoria, Richard's plan, the evidence. Mr. Coleman listened in silence. When Frankie finished, the old man's face was unreadable. "The company that's been taking our homes, that's Thornton Properties?" "Yes, sir." "And the old man Thornton wants to take down his own daughter?" "Yes, sir." "Why should I trust any of them? The Thornton name is on the papers that destroyed my brother Harold, put him on the street, killed him." Frankie thought about it, about trust, about second chances, about what Daddy would say if he were here. "Because sometimes people change, Mr. Coleman, and sometimes they need help proving it, just like the rest of us." Mr. Coleman studied him for a long, long moment, then he lowered the shotgun. "Get the Hendersons. I'll get Maria Santos. We'll be there." By 8 in the morning, 12 families had gathered in Richard Thornton's study. The Hendersons, married 40 years, evicted for property improvement violations that never existed. Maria Santos, husband deployed in Afghanistan, company tried to seize her home while he was serving his country. The Williamses, the Johnsons, the Browns, the Carters, all with stories, all with documents, all with rage that had been waiting years for somewhere to go. Mr. Coleman stood at the front, looking around at the wealth surrounding him. "Never thought I'd be standing in a place like this. Never thought I'd be asking people like you to save me," Richard replied. Their eyes met. Something old and heavy passed between them. "Your company destroyed my brother's life. Harold died in a shelter. Alone. Cold. Forgotten. I know. And I am truly sorry." "Sorry doesn't bring him back." "No. But maybe it can stop the same thing from happening to others." Mr. Coleman was silent. Then his voice dropped. "My uncle was a soldier. Samuel Coleman. Served in Korea. He saved a white man's life and died doing it. That soldier never came back to thank him. Never found our family. My uncle died thinking nobody cared." Richard went pale as ash. "His name was Samuel Coleman?" "That was his name. Private Samuel Coleman. Well, 7th Infantry Regiment. He saved my life on December 3rd, 1952. I've spent 60 years searching for his family." The room went absolutely still. Tears streamed down Mr. Coleman's weathered face. "You're him. The soldier my uncle saved. I'm him. And I've owed your family a debt I could never repay." Mr. Coleman extended his hand. "Then let's start repaying it today." Richard took it. 9:55 a.m. The Thornton Estate. Victoria arrived precisely on schedule. 3 lawyers flanking her like attack dogs. A psychiatrist she'd personally selected carrying an expensive leather briefcase. She walked into the formal sitting room like she'd already won the war. "Good morning, Father. Ready for your evaluation?" Richard sat in his wheelchair by the window, calm, still, the eye of a coming hurricane. "Good morning, Victoria. Thank you for dressing up for my execution." "Don't be dramatic. This is for your own protection." William stood in the corner, silent, watching with troubled eyes. The psychiatrist, Dr. Wells, gray hair, rimless glasses, the look of a man well compensated for his conclusions, opened his briefcase. "Mr. Thornton, I'll be asking you a series of questions to assess your cognitive function. Please answer as clearly as you can." "Of course, Doctor. Take your time." The questions began. Simple ones first. What is your name? What is today's date? Who is the current president? Richard answered perfectly, clearly, confidently. Dr. Wells frowned, tried harder questions, complex calculations, memory tests, abstract reasoning puzzles. Richard answered every single one without hesitation. Victoria's smile began to crack, a tiny fracture at first, then spreading. He's having a good day. That doesn't prove anything about his overall... Actually, Ms. Thornton Hayes, Dr. Wells interrupted, looking uncomfortable. Your father's cognitive function appears entirely normal. I see no clinical basis for a competency challenge. That's impossible. He's been giving away millions to complete strangers. He's befriending children from the ghetto. That's not rational behavior. Richard smiled. The smile of a man who'd been playing chess while his opponent played checkers. Perhaps it's the first truly rational behavior I've had in decades. He nodded at William. William walked to the double doors, opened them wide, and 12 people filed into the room. The Hendersons, Maria Santos, the Williamses, the Johnsons, the Browns, the Carters, Mr. Coleman, and behind them, reporters, 6 of them, local news crews, business journalists, cameras already rolling, red lights blinking, Victoria's face drained of color. What the hell is this? This, Richard said quietly, is a reckoning. One by one, the families testified. Mrs. Henderson, 74 years old, hands trembling as she held up her original deed. We lived in that house for 40 years, raised 3 children there, paid every single mortgage payment on time. Then Thornton Properties said we had code violations. Violations their own inspectors invented. They took everything we had. Maria Santos stepped forward, still wearing her husband's army sweatshirt, the one she slept in every night he was deployed. My husband is in Afghanistan right now, serving this country. While he was gone, they tried to take our home, said I abandoned the property because I stayed with my dying mother for 2 weeks. I had to choose between saying goodbye to my mother and keeping my children's home. Mr. Coleman, voice steady as bedrock, eyes fixed on Richard. My brother Harold lost his home to Thornton Properties in 2019. He was 72 years old, diabetic. They evicted him in January, put him on the street in the dead of winter. He died 3 months later in a homeless shelter, alone, cold, wondering what he did wrong. Each testimony hit like a hammer blow. The reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras captured every word, every tear. Victoria stood frozen in the corner. Her lawyers whispered urgently, already calculating exit strategies. She ignored them. This is slander. This is defamation. I'll sue every single one of you into... This is the truth, Richard said. And we have documentation for every single case. William stepped forward, handed a thick folder to the lead reporter. Internal memos showing deliberate targeting of minority neighborhoods, emails discussing bribes to city housing inspectors, financial records proving Ms. Thornton Hayes personally profited from every eviction, over 400 pages of evidence. Victoria lunged for the folder. Security blocked her path. You can't do this. I'm your daughter. Yes, Richard said quietly. You are. And that's what makes this the hardest thing I've ever done. Then Frankie stepped forward. He was the smallest person in the room, wearing his father's coat. Raymond's watch on his thin wrist stopped at the exact moment his father died. Every camera turned to him. My name is Franklin Taylor. I'm 10 years old. I live on Maple Street in Detroit. His voice didn't shake, not even a little. 1 month ago, I found Mr. Richard in a blizzard. His car had a flat tire. He couldn't fix it. His hands were too frozen. When I tried to help him, he called me terrible names. He said horrible things about my skin, my family, my neighborhood. He paused. The room held its breath. But I helped him anyway. I changed his tire with my bare hands until they bled. I didn't take his money. I just went home." He looked directly at Richard. "My daddy taught me that kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who you are. You don't help people because they're good. You help them because helping is what you do." He turned to face the cameras. "Mr. Richard isn't crazy. He isn't incompetent. He's trying to make things right after a lifetime of making them wrong. And his daughter is trying to stop him because she doesn't want to lose the money she made by destroying families like mine." The room was absolutely silent. Victoria's lead lawyer whispered something urgent. She shook him off. "This is ridiculous. You're going to believe a 10-year-old child from the ghetto over—" "I believe the evidence," the lead reporter said, holding up the folder. "I believe the 12 families you destroyed who came here today to tell their stories. And yes, I believe the child." "This isn't over, Yes." Richard rose from his wheelchair, stood on his own feet, taller than he'd looked in years. "It is." He spoke with the authority of a man who'd built empires and watched them crumble, and now finally understood what mattered. "Victoria Thornton Hayes, effective immediately. You are removed from all positions within Thornton Industries and Thornton Properties. Your shares are frozen pending criminal investigation. You are no longer welcome in my home or my life." Victoria stared at him, pure hatred burning in her eyes. "You'll regret this until the day you die." "No, I've spent 82 years regretting. This is the first thing I'll never regret." She turned, walked out. The door slammed behind her like a gunshot. Richard looked at the families, at Mr. Coleman, at Frankie. 60 years ago, a young black man saved my life. His name was Samuel Coleman. He died a week later, and I never found his family. I told myself I would someday, but someday became never. He looked at Mr. Coleman. "Until now." He took a breath, the weight of decades in his voice. "I can't undo what my company has done. I can't bring back Harold Coleman or give the Hendersons back their years, but I can make damn sure it never happens again." He faced the cameras directly. "Effective immediately, I am divesting from Thornton Properties entirely. All pending evictions are halted, and I'm establishing a $50 million fund, the Raymond Taylor Housing Justice Fund, to provide legal defense and assistance for families targeted by predatory housing practices." He looked at Frankie. "A good heart in a poor child is worth more than gold in a cruel man." 2 weeks later, Grace opened her eyes. Hospital room. Clean white walls. Sunlight streaming through real windows. Machines beeping softly, steadily. Alive. And Frankie, asleep in the chair beside her bed. Raymond's coat draped over him like a blanket, his small hand still holding hers. "Baby?" He stirred, blinked, saw her eyes open. "Mama!" He threw his arms around her, careful of the tubes, careful of everything, but holding tight, so tight. "The doctor said the surgery went perfect. Your new kidney is working. You're gonna be okay, Mama. You're really gonna be okay." Grace touched his face. Her hand, stronger now than it had been in years, traced the lines of his jaw, the shape of his nose, so much like Raymond. "Did I miss anything while I was sleeping?" Frankie laughed, the first real, free laugh in weeks. "Just a little bit, Mama, just a little bit." Richard came to visit that afternoon. He looked different, lighter, like chains he'd worn for decades had finally fallen away. "Mrs. Taylor, you look wonderful. I feel wonderful. For the first time in I don't know how long." He sat beside her bed. Frankie on the other side, a strange little family, formed by a blizzard and a flat tire. "I've established a scholarship in Raymond's name. Full ride to any university Franklin chooses. No conditions, no strings." Grace's eyes welled up. Mr. Thornton, Richard, please. I think we're past formalities. Richard, she smiled through her tears. How can I ever thank you? He looked at Frankie, at the boy who'd knelt in the snow to help a stranger who didn't deserve it. You raised him. That's thanks enough for 100 lifetimes. Oh. 1 month later, Richard Thornton visited Maple Street. The Rolls-Royce looked absurd parked between rusted sedans and pickup trucks held together with prayers. But nobody minded. Everybody waved. Frankie pushed Richard's wheelchair down the cracked sidewalk, past the Taylor house with its freshly painted blue door, past the Henderson place, past Maria Santos waving from her porch, her husband finally home beside her. Mr. Coleman waited on his front steps, sweet potato pie in hand. Never thought I'd serve pie to a Thornton on Maple Street. Never thought I'd eat pie on Maple Street. They sat together on the creaky porch. Two old men, 60 years of history finally acknowledged. Your uncle saved my life, Mr. Coleman. I know. I spent 60 years failing to honor that. I know that too. I'm sorry. Mr. Coleman was quiet. Then, Samuel used to say something. A good deed don't need thanks. It needs passing on. He looked at Frankie. I think you passed it on just fine. 10 years later, Franklin Taylor walked across the stage, cap and gown, diploma in hand. The audience erupted in cheers and applause. Grace, healthy, strong, radiant, stood in the front row, tears streaming down her proud face. Beside her, Mr. Coleman, 83 now but still sharp. William Thornton, clapping like a proud uncle. 2 seats remained empty. 2 framed photographs rested on them. Raymond Taylor, who taught his son to help people when he could. Richard Thornton Sr., who died peacefully 3 years ago, surrounded by people who loved him. Frankie's voice echoed through the auditorium. My father taught me to help people when I could. A man named Richard taught me it's never too late to change. They're both gone now, but what they gave me lives on. He looked out at the audience. I'm dedicating my life to making sure no family loses their home the way so many almost lost theirs. Because a good heart, in anyone, anywhere, is worth more than all the gold in the world. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness matters. Have you ever had a stranger change your life? Tell us in the comments. Like, subscribe, and remember, God keeps the score.